I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have to undo this whole side. Hello and welcome to today's video. Do you ever have a moment when you realize just how little chill you possess? Because that moment occurred to me yesterday. I finished a commission I had been working on for a while and went, now what? Do I just chill like a normal human and not do anything? No, I do not. Instead, I think back to December 2019. It's almost New Year's Eve, and I am sick as a dog in bed. And who has joined me in bed, you might ask? Anya Shaluptra. I'm sure I'm butchering that name, aka Yennefer from The Witcher. Yes, I was sick as a dog in bed and I was binge watching The Witcher, but there was Yennefer, and what was she wearing, you might ask? You're probably not asking that, but I'm going to answer it anyway. She was wearing a rope dress. This rope dress. And my little crafty brain went, oh my god, I want to make a dress out of rope. So that's what we're doing today. So to emphasize just how little chill I possess, after I had this idea of, I want to try and make this dress, I immediately went on YouTube to see if there were any tutorials on how to do rope dresses, because even though I have worked with rope before and understand some of the knots and things you can do, I've never attempted to make a dress with it. So I came across a YouTuber, She's Apples, who does macrame dress tutorials, and I watched one of her tutorials, which I will link below. And after that, I just searched the web. I had an idea of ideally what I would like this dress to look like, and so I just looked for inspirations that had the elements that I wanted. So after I had gathered a bunch of references, I made a sketch, and this is the sketch I came up with. And because I have absolutely no chill, yesterday I ran to the store and got rope. So I really don't know what I'm doing, so we'll see what we end up with. But I know to start I have to get some measurements and then cut some rope. So that's where we'll be starting. Wish me luck. So after I had all the measurements, I started with the collar. So I took the circumference of my neck and added about 8 inches and cut 6 ropes to that length to go around the collar. I braided the ends. The idea is that I would have fewer ropes I'd have to tie in the back, and then had a 7th rope that I weaved in and out. Once I had all my ropes laid out, I sewed them together so they stayed together and in order, and then I weaved in and out until I got the length that I needed. Then again, I sewed the ropes together and braided the ends. Okay, so we have our neck piece, and I now have some pieces to start on the length of my dress. To do that, I just took my measurement from where it would attach on the neckline, and I want it to be roughly floor length, so I had it go to the floor, and then I wanted double that length on each strand because you're going to be looping it through and tying it on the neckline. So all the strings that I've cut so far are basically double the length that I want the dress to be. I know that I want 4 strands coming down for our décolletage bust area, so that's what I'm going to be working on now. So to start, I am taking one of my strands, I'm finding the 2 ends to make sure it's the same length on each side, finding the top loop where those connect, and then I'm going to be just feeding that through one of these loops up here. Bringing my tails through that loop. And that's how we're going to be attaching those. So I think rather than braiding these, I am going to leave them just flat for now. And I'm going to now bring these down to our waist. So I just took a measurement from my neck to my waist to see if it was the same as on the mannequin. My waist falls about an inch higher, so I'm just going to mark that, and I already cut a piece of cord that works for the circumference of my waist, so I'm going to tie that around her waist and then we can start on the bust area. Over and back. Feed it over the top and move it back through. So for this next part, I am going to be taking ropes and have them going from here and here across here to start to give us coverage over the chest. So how we did it at the top where we just looped it through, I'm going to be doing the same thing. Again, I'm using the same length that I used from here because we're already getting short, so even though it's further down on the dress, hopefully the length will be long enough. If not, it'll be a shorter dress than I wanted, but that's fine. So just going from here. And I'm going to be bringing these across to start to give us our coverage on the chest, and I'm going to be doing the same thing from the other side. So unfortunately I have run out of rope, so I have reached my stopping point for today. I'm pretty pleased with how it's looking so far. I think the top looks similar to what I was picturing, not exactly, but for my first attempt at this, I'm digging it. I don't want to get too excited too early because I do have to figure out how I'm going to attach all this and what it's going to end up looking like, but I definitely need more rope to cover the boobas before I figure out what I'm doing down here. So for today, I think I am stopping, and then we'll start again whenever I get rope, which will probably be tomorrow. So that is all for day one. Hello! We are back. It is day 2 of working on the dress. I ran to the store yesterday and got more rope, so we have adequate material to work with. I just got off of work and quickly changed and did some makeup so I didn't look like a poop on camera, and it occurred to me that I picked out a black shirt and I'm going to be in front of a black background, so I kind of just look like a floating head, but it'll be a John B. the Genie moment and I can just be a floating head. That's fine. You care about the dress more so, right? So right now these lay flat, and this is where I had questions, I guess, when I saw Yennefer's dress in The Witcher, is looking at her dress, I had a pretty good idea of how the ropes around her collar attached and how the ropes attached here on the bust, because if you watched my Van Gogh dress video, the way I did the overskirt that had all the strips of fabric attached to the holy fabric that I used, if you've seen that video, then you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't seen that video, go check it out. But in that video, the way I attached the fabric is basically the same thing I'm doing here, folded the fabric in half and looped the tails through the loop. So I knew, seeing Yennefer's dress, how the collar was attached and how these were attached, but where I didn't know how things progressed is I'll put a picture on the screen, but the pieces on her bust lay super flat, and it looked like here there was like a little bit of fabric peeking out, so I was assuming there had to be some kind of fabric underneath for all of it to be attached to, but I really wanted to know if I could make things lay nicely without attaching it to fabric, because I don't want to use a sewing machine. So she's Apple's video. She's Apple's video, and she sewed these together just with a needle and thread so that they weren't moving all over the place and you weren't getting gapping. So that was the mystery piece that I was really curious when I was thinking about making a dress out of rope. how that would work. So thank you to her for that tutorial. So once I get these all laid out and nice and I have them all taped in place, I will sew them together eventually. But right now I'm just going to focus on bringing these back so they match, and then we'll continue. Okay, so they're all laid out pretty nicely. I'm very happy so far. I don't know how fascinating this is going to be. It's all going to be just knot tying now. And then hopefully those will all lay nicely. I have a feeling it's going to be tedious. I know tying those knots is going to take up room. So I am curious to see how it's all going to fit. These might end up having to go back even further. It's all experimentation. We're going to find out. I don't know that you need to watch all this. All of this knot tying is going to be the same as this knot tying. So I might just do that without you watching. I don't think it's going to be that entertaining. So I'll do that and then I'll get back to you. So because I didn't do a good job showing or explaining how to do this knot, I made a diagram for your viewing pleasure, and hopefully this illustrates it better than I did earlier. Okay, as I'm tying this, I'm having a thought, and I don't know how well I'm going to be able to explain it, so bear with me. As I'm making these knots, I was doing them all the same direction. So we're pulling from this side, right? And then tucking this way. This side has the rope that I've just pulled down, pulling the direction that I want. Whereas this side, you can see it's not pulling the direction that I want. I have to pull down and then fight it. So I'm thinking that's the reason for this discrepancy in the sides. So I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have to undo this whole side. It'll be fine. It's just, it's late. I mean, it's not that late, but I didn't eat dinner yet. I have a feeling this is gonna be a finish up this side and then work on this tomorrow. I was really hoping I could take this off the mannequin tonight and try it on, but I don't think that's gonna happen. So I'm gonna go throw a pizza in the oven and come back. And I'm back! Oh my god, that just took forever. I have it all knotted. As you can tell, it's not perfect at the moment. I'm definitely going to have to do some adjusting, but I'm at a point where I can try it on. So I'm going to try it on, and depending on how it looks, I'm definitely going to have to do some straightening, but I wonder if I should try to leave that angle or if I should just make it flat across. I guess we're going to try it on and see. So this is it on at the moment, where we're left off. I'm definitely going to have to do some reworking of the knots. But, I mean, it's together, so that's a plus. It's holding. Everything's holding. But this is where I'm stopping for tonight. It's not looking 100%, but we have a structure. We have something. We have something that can come off the mannequin and go on a body, so I'll call it a plus. I'm probably going to think and assess and then see where to go from here. But this is the end of day 2. See you next time I have time to film. Bye! Okay, so I was not really planning on recording today because what I'm doing is not all that interesting. What I've found is the proportions on my mannequin are very different from my own. She's got a much bigger chest situation and a much smaller waist, so I'm having to adjust for that. So all I'm doing for that is I keep trying it on, making little marks for adjustments, and then just going in and adjusting the height of these knots. And that's pretty much it. The only other thing that I'm gonna do is start adding ropes in between here and to fill up the back. And the way I'll be attaching those is the same way I attach the ropes up here. So after all my knots were adjusted and everything was sitting right, it was time to hand stitch. There really wasn't much technique to this. I just sewed through all the ropes and went back and forth until I felt the chest area felt secure and the ropes were laying nicely. And I just did that for both sides of the chest. Once the chest was stitched and it was all holding snug, I finally moved on to the skirt portion. For this, I just figured out where I wanted the quote-unquote hem of my skirt to be. I decided 14 inches looked good, and then I just went around measuring 14 inches down from each of the knots on the waist and then making a knot on that mark. And the knot that I used was the same as the knot I used on the waist, but this time I just did all the knots in the same direction because it didn't really matter. And that was it! The dress was done! So this is the dress. As you can tell, it is together. It fits. We can wear it and we can move around in it and it stays where it's supposed to. The top of the dress, I would say we have pretty full coverage on. Is it risque? Yes, but I can move around and things stay in place. I did put padding underneath just in case, but we're covered, we're good. I don't think we're really going anywhere. The bottom of the dress, as you can tell, just due to the nature of the knots, there's much more visibility on the bottom. So I did put a skirt on underneath so you wouldn't be seeing anything, but it holds. It's together. Could we call this a dress? Perhaps. Is it probably more appropriate to call it a cover-up? Yes. But if you're daring and you really wanted to wear something very risque, I'm sure you could. But this is a dress. So overall, I am pretty pleased with how the dress came out, being that this was my first time doing this. However, the reason the wrap-up was so short and choppy and why the bottom of the dress was not a consistent length is because my original plan was to dye the dress, and I knew it was going to shrink. So I just did a quick wrap-up in case things didn't go well, and womp womp, they didn't. The dress shrunk way more than expected and ended up being even more revealing, and the dyes didn't look quite how I envisioned. So 3 cheers for forethought, but I actually wish I had just not tried dyeing it and left it as is, but oh well, such is life, you live and learn. I hope you enjoyed watching. If you liked this video, please give it a like. If you want to see more, please think about subscribing. I will link my Instagram down below if you want to see any more of what I do, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye! So I wonder if I can make a rope out of dress. Rope out of dress? Dress out of rope? Different dresses that were more my style and trying to figure out what dress I could put together. Because I realized that I think I may have explained it. I have a sequin. I have no idea where that came from. Shimmy, shimmy, shake. Somebody turn around. Crash, it's not in their direction. Shake the muscle.